He whispered something so strange. I almost thought I imagined it. But I didn't. And I'll never unhear it. The night started quiet. Too quiet, maybe. Just the three of us sitting at the dinner table. Soft jazz playing from Gabriel's playlist, the one he only pulled out on special nights. The lights were dim. Candlelit. Romantic, almost. But forced. Gabriel had cooked dinner. That alone should have raised every red flag I'd buried deep down over the years. Because Gabriel never cooked. Not in the 12 years we were married. Not even once. But tonight, he wanted everything to be perfect. His word, not mine. I remember looking across the table at my son, Jackson, just 10 years old, still small enough to swing his legs under the chair, but old enough to know something felt off. He was watching Gabriel closely. Not scared. Just confused. "Mom, this chicken looks funny," he whispered to me, just loud enough that only I could hear. I smiled, reassured him with a little nod, because that's what moms do. Even when they're scared. Even when something inside is screaming, something's not right. I pushed that feeling down. Gabriel was smiling. Not the fake smile he'd worn for the past year, the one that never touched his eyes. No. This smile was different. Wide. Relaxed. Too relaxed. I picked up my fork. The chicken looked fine, maybe a little too perfectly seared. The mashed potatoes were creamy. Too creamy. They glistened under the light. Almost like paste. Still, I took a bite. And that's when the shift started. Not dramatic. Just a slow swirl behind my eyes. A buzzing in my ears. Like a train coming from far away that I couldn't quite place. Across from me, Jackson frowned. He dropped his fork. He blinked slow, his mouth parted. "My head hurts," he mumbled. "Mom, my tummy," clatter. His face hit the table. I stood up so fast my chair scraped across the hardwood, but then, my knees gave out. My body suddenly weighed too much. My arms felt like jelly. My lips were numb. The room stretched like rubber, swaying from left to right, colors blending into each other like someone smeared paint across my vision. I reached for Jackson. I had to. But I missed. And that's when I heard it. Gabriel's voice. Not frantic. Not concerned. Calm. Cold. Flat. Just let go, Sky. He wasn't asking if I was okay. He wasn't calling 911. He was watching. Waiting. Smiling. That's when the truth hit harder than the poison ever could. He knew. He knew what was happening. He did this. I didn't fall. I let myself fall. I dropped to the floor beside my son, my cheek hitting the tile like it was part of the plan. And in that moment, I had a choice. Panic or play dead. My training kicked in. Before I was a mom, I was a nurse. And before that, I was a woman who always knew when something felt off. This wasn't just food poisoning. This wasn't an allergic reaction. This was a plan. So I shut my eyes. Slowed my breathing. Listened. The room went quiet, except for the soft drip of something leaking in the sink. Then I heard his footsteps. Casual. No rush. A cabinet opened. A glass clinked against the counter. Water poured. And then, the voice again. Not to me. Not even near me. But I heard it. It's done. You'll have everything by morning. Everything. That word hung in the air like a fog I couldn't see through. Everything? What did that mean? The silence afterward was louder than his words. I felt my chest rising too fast. I had to calm down. Had to stay still. had to survive. For Jackson. I counted the steps. He walked to the hallway. Stopped near the door. There was a pause. Then, click. The front door shut. Was he gone? Was it a trick? I waited. Every second dragging like cement across my skin. Finally, I cracked my eyes open. The kitchen was empty. The door was closed. I reached for Jackson, still slumped, still breathing. His face was pale, but his eyes fluttered when I touched his back. He was alive. Barely. "Don't move," I whispered. "Not yet. Just stay still." I didn't know how long we lay there. Could have been 2 minutes. Could have been 10. All I knew was that if I moved too soon, if he came back, we were done. But if I waited just long enough, we had a chance. "Mom?" Jackson whispered. "We're okay," I said softly. "But we have to go. Let me ask you something. What would you do if the person you loved looked you in the eye and tried to kill you with a smile? Would you believe it? Would you freeze? Would you survive? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever ignored your gut? Have you ever smiled through something that made your skin crawl just to keep the peace? Because that's what I did. And it nearly cost me everything. If you're still watching, please like this video. If you've ever doubted your instincts, subscribe. Because the rest of this story? It's not just about betrayal. It's about what it takes to stay alive when love turns into something lethal. Now let me take you back to the beginning of that day. The last time I thought we were still a family. People always ask, how did you not see it coming? And I don't have a perfect answer for that. Because sometimes, love doesn't blind you all at once. It's not a curtain that falls. It's more like fog. Thick, quiet, creeping in little by little until you're lost, and you don't even realize you're lost. Until it's too late. Let me rewind to before the poisoning. Before Gabriel whispered those words. To the version of our life that looked good from the outside. I'm Skylar Nguyen. I'm 36. A full-time mom. And once upon a time, I was an emergency nurse. I used to run into chaos. I used to stay calm under pressure. I used to be the person people trusted to save them. And then I became a mother. And everything shifted. The moment I held Jackson, all 5 pounds of him, wrinkled and screaming, I knew nothing else would matter more. I left my job to raise him. Gabriel said it was noble. He said, our son will always remember that you were there. That you were present. I believed him. And for a long time, things were good. Jackson is the kind of kid who asks 10 questions before breakfast. He wants to know how clouds float and what makes toast brown. He watches the world with this quiet awe like it's all brand new. He calls me his forever best friend. He's my whole world. And Gabriel? He used to be my safe place. Funny, confident, sharp. He could walk into a room and make everyone look his way. People admired him, hell, I admired him. He had this way of making you feel seen. Special. He always knew the right thing to say. But somewhere along the way, the man I married started fading. It wasn't sudden. At first, it was the small stuff, forgetting our anniversary. Blaming work. Coming home late, distracted, irritable. Then came the locked phone. The calls he wouldn't take in front of me. The passwords I didn't know anymore. The business trips with no destination shared. And me? I did what so many of us do. I made excuses for him. I told myself, it's just stress. He's under pressure. This startup is his dream. Of course, he's overwhelmed. And I wanted to believe it. Because believing it meant I didn't have to admit the truth, he was drifting away. But what hurt most wasn't even the distance. It was the silence. The dinners where he'd barely speak. The hugs that felt like habit instead of love. The way he started calling me Sky again, like we were strangers. And still, I held on. Because of Jackson. Because I thought this was just a rough patch. Because I didn't want to be the woman who gave up too soon. But deep down, I knew. There were moments when I'd catch him staring. Not lovingly. Just watching me. While I folded laundry. While I cooked dinner. While I stood at the sink, humming to myself like I always did. He wasn't looking at me. He was studying me. And there was something cold in his eyes I couldn't quite place. Not anger. Not love. Just calculation. But again, I told myself I was overthinking it. I gaslit my own instincts because the alternative felt worse. Until that Tuesday. He came home early. Earlier than I'd seen him in weeks. He walked through the front door like he hadn't been a ghost in his own home, kissed Jackson on the forehead, looked me in the eye, and said, "I'm cooking tonight." Just like that. No explanation. No reason. I blinked at him. You're cooking?" He laughed. Shrugged. Yeah. Felt like doing something different. We haven't had a nice family dinner in a while. And something about the way he said that made my stomach tighten. I looked at him, really looked. He was too cheerful. Like someone playing a role. The same man who barely touched a spatula in 12 years now wanted to be Gordon Ramsay. I almost asked, why tonight? But I didn't. I smiled instead. Because I wanted it to be real. And when Jackson heard the news, he lit up like it was Christmas. He ran to the kitchen and pulled out his little apron, the one that said Mommy's sous chef. He was so excited to help his dad. He didn't know any better. And Gabriel? He played it perfectly. He said he wanted to try a new recipe. Chicken with lemon herb butter, mashed potatoes, and roasted asparagus. He even bought wine, my favorite kind, chilled just right. We should celebrate, he said. The new funding came through. Samson Holloway finally signed. Samson Holloway. I had heard that name floating around for months, some big investor he'd been chasing for his app's next phase. I wanted to be happy for him. I really did. But everything about that moment felt staged. Like a play written just for me. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen, arms crossed, watching Gabriel move around like he belonged there, measuring, stirring, even humming. And all I could think was, he's never done this before. Why now? And then something in me, that gut feeling I'd been pushing down for months, started to rise again. But I swallowed it. Because I wanted to believe. That maybe this was our turning point. That maybe this was the man I married, trying again. And when dinner was ready, when the table was set, and the candles were lit, when Jackson took his seat like a little prince, and Gabriel looked at me and said, "To us," I smiled. I lifted my glass. And I told myself, maybe this is the start of something new. I was wrong. So wrong. They say your body always knows before your brain catches up. And mine did. The second I sat down, something felt off. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just wrong. Gabriel had set the table with our wedding china. The plates we hadn't used in years. The cloth napkins we only pulled out for Thanksgiving. A folded card with our names, like we were guests at our own dinner. The food looked fine. Almost too perfect. Crispy lemon herb chicken, bright green asparagus lined up like soldiers. Mashed potatoes whipped smooth, too smooth. They had this strange sheen to them, like plastic. And the wine. My favorite brand, my favorite bottle. But I never saw him open it. To us, Gabriel said, raising his glass. He was smiling again. That same stretched too wide grin. The one that said everything was under control. Jackson giggled and clinked his juice glass against ours. He was so proud. So happy. He thought his dad was finally back. I took a bite of the chicken. It tasted okay. But there was a bitter edge that didn't match the lemon. The mashed potatoes? Warm. But the texture was gluey. Like they'd been pureed and overworked. I swallowed and reached for my water. The ice had melted already. Gabriel just sat there, watching me. Fork in hand. Barely touching his plate. "You cooked all this yourself?" I asked. He nodded. Shrugged. "Figured it was time I pulled my weight, right?" And then he smiled again. Too easily. Like someone who was proud of a secret they hadn't shared yet. I felt a flicker in my chest. That whisper again, "Don't eat any more." I looked at Jackson. He'd already eaten half of his chicken. He was chewing slower now. His brow furrowed. He looked at me, and his voice came out small. "Mom, my tummy hurts." Then his hand slipped from his fork. His fingers twitched. He reached for his glass but knocked it over instead. The juice spilled, red across the tablecloth like blood. He swayed in his chair. "Jackson?" I said, heart racing. He blinked at me. "I feel weird," and then he collapsed forward. I stood so fast the chair nearly tipped, but the dizziness hit me instantly. My legs wobbled. The room tilted. My throat felt thick. My arms, heavy. I looked across the table and saw Gabriel, smiling. Still. Not shocked. Not concerned. Just calm. "Just relax," he said softly. "It's okay." But it wasn't okay. Every instinct inside me screamed run. Scream. Do something. But my body wasn't listening. I dropped to my knees beside Jackson. He was breathing, but shallow. His fingers were twitching like he couldn't hold on to anything. And then, Gabriel stood up. Picked up his plate. Walked to the sink. And as he turned the water on, like nothing had happened, I heard him speak. "I loved you once, Sky. But love doesn't pay the bills." He said it casually. Like it wasn't meant to hurt. Like he wasn't standing 10 feet away from the family he just poisoned. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't rage. It wasn't a moment of madness. This was a plan. He didn't want to hurt us. He wanted us gone. Clean. Quiet. Painless. An erasure. And something in me snapped. Not loud. Not wild. Just sharp. Protect Jackson. I dropped fully to the ground, dragging him with me. I turned his body gently, rested his head against mine. I pressed his little hand under my fingers and squeezed, just once. Enough for him to know I was still here. Then I stilled my breathing. Slowed everything. Gabriel walked past us without a second glance. His footsteps echoed into the hallway. A pause. A click. The front door closed. Silence. I didn't move. Not yet. I waited. And then, Jackson stirred. "Mom," he whispered, weakly. "Shoo. We're okay," I breathed. "We have to get to the bathroom." We crawled. On our hands. Our elbows. Our knees. Dragging ourselves like animals caught in a trap. I turned the faucet on full blast, loud. Just in case he came back. Then I dropped to the floor and forced my fingers down my throat. I had to get it out. The taste of bile, garlic, metal, it didn't matter. I vomited everything I could. So did Jackson, tears running down his cheeks, shaking, gagging, choking. But we did it. We emptied our stomachs. And little by little, the fog started to clear. My head still pounded. My legs were numb. But my mind? Sharp again. I sat there on the cold tile floor, cradling my son, breathing hard. Why did he do it? Jackson whispered. I couldn't answer. Not yet. We had to move. I grabbed the emergency flashlight from under the sink, wrapped Jackson in my hoodie, and we crawled through the laundry room toward the garage. I opened the garage door by hand, it groaned loud enough to make me flinch. I peeked out. No car. No one. Just the dim yellow of porch lights and the hush of a quiet neighborhood. Go, I whispered. To Araceli's. Now. He ran barefoot across the lawn, his little legs stumbling. I followed behind him, legs dragging, vision spinning. He pounded on the door. Araceli Terrell opened it in seconds. One look at us, she knew. He tried to poison us, I gasped. Call 911. She did. And in that moment, for the first time that night, I believed we might actually live. The paramedics arrived within 5 minutes of Araceli's call. But it felt like forever. I remember the flashing red lights bouncing off her living room walls, lighting up the pictures of her grandkids, the books stacked on the coffee table, the jacket I'd left there just a week ago after our morning walk. None of it felt real. I was sitting on her couch, shivering, my body drenched in sweat. Jackson was curled up beside me, still wrapped in my hoodie, his fingers curled tightly around mine. When the EMT placed the oxygen mask over his face, I almost broke. He's stable, the medic said. You both are. But we need to get you to the hospital. Now. I nodded. I couldn't speak. Everything was a blur, the ride in the ambulance, the fluorescent lights above the stretcher, the sound of my own heart pounding in my ears. At the hospital, it all happened fast. IVs. Blood work. Vitals. The doctor, a woman named Brooklyn something, ironically, came in about an hour later, her brow furrowed, clipboard in hand. It was zolpidem, she said. Mixed into the food. A very high dose. Enough to sedate both of you, permanently. She paused. You're lucky you vomited when you did. If you hadn't, her voice trailed off. She didn't have to finish. I knew. This wasn't just an attempt to hurt us. It was meant to look like a quiet tragedy. An accidental overdose. A story tied up with a neat, tragic bow. We would have been headlines. A mother and son found unresponsive. No signs of forced entry. No foul play suspected. And Gabriel? He would have vanished. A few hours later, the detectives came. Detective May Knapp looked like someone who didn't blink often. Tall, silver hair, no-nonsense stare. Bowden Ollie was her partner, softer voice, but eyes that missed nothing. They asked for my statement. I told them everything. The dinner. The dizziness. Gabriel's words. The escape. Every single moment, from the first bite to the final whisper. They listened without interrupting. Took notes. Nodded. Then May closed her notepad. We've already issued a bolo, be on the lookout. He's not at your home. The car's gone. But we'll find him. I wanted to believe her. But all I could think was, he planned this. This wasn't rage. This wasn't some drunken mistake. This was methodical. He cooked that dinner. He watched us eat. He told someone on the phone, you'll have everything by morning. He wasn't just trying to disappear. He was trying to erase us. And I had no idea why. Until Araceli showed up again. She'd gone home to grab clothes for Jackson and me. And when she came back into the hospital room, her face looked different. Pale. Like she'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. She sat down next to me and took my hand. Sky, she hesitated. I didn't know how to tell you. But I saw him. Gabriel. My heart stopped. With who? I whispered. A girl. Young. Maybe 25. I saw them at that place downtown, Cobalt. A couple of months ago. He kissed her. They left together. I didn't follow. I didn't say anything because, her voice cracked. I didn't want to hurt you if it was just a one-time thing. But it wasn't a one-time thing. Brooklyn Peterson. That was her name. I knew it before Orselli said it. Gabriel had mentioned her in passing once, said she was a PR intern at his company. Polite. Eager. Came from a well-known family. But then it all started clicking. Brooklyn was the daughter of Jackson Bishop, a private investor Gabriel had been courting for months. Big money. Old money. A name people respected. And then I remembered something Gabriel said weeks ago, when he thought I wasn't listening. She's about to come into something huge. You don't walk away from that kind of opportunity. I thought he meant a business deal. But now I saw it. Brooklyn stood to inherit millions. But there was a condition in her late father's trust. The man she married had to be clean. No children. No debts. No messy history. And that's when it hit me, Gabriel wasn't just cheating. He was rewriting his life. He couldn't just divorce me. Because divorce leaves trails. Custody battles. Financial records. Public mess. He needed to disappear clean. No Skylar. No Jackson. Just Gabriel Rollins, reborn as Sam Hollow, the charming, childless entrepreneur starting fresh. The detectives confirmed it days later. They traced offshore wires, accounts opened in Belize and the Cayman Islands. Found a new passport under the name Sam Hollow. A rental property held in Brooklyn's name. Gabriel had emptied our savings. He'd rerouted everything. And he'd booked 2 tickets to Barcelona, then a private flight from there to Central America. He didn't just want to leave. He wanted to start over. Without us. He was going to kill his family, so he could marry into another one. Everything I thought was ours, our home, our son, our story, was just an inconvenience to him. A burden he planned to erase. And I let him kiss me goodnight for months while he was planning my death. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It just sits in your chest. Heavy. Cold. I didn't cry when the doctor told me what he used. I didn't cry when Orselli told me about the girl. I didn't cry when the detective said they found the fake passport. But I did cry when Jackson looked at me that night in the hospital, bandaged, bruised, but safe, and whispered, "Is Daddy coming back?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know what to say. What do you tell a child when the person who gave him life planned to take it away? It took them 46 hours to find him. Gabriel was arrested at a private marina outside Miami, trying to board a yacht bound for Panama. Brooklyn clinging to his side like this was still some romantic getaway. He wasn't running anymore. He was escaping. When they found him, he had a fake passport, 2 burner phones, a duffel bag full of cash, and the Rolex I gave him for our 10th anniversary. I saw the mugshot the next morning. He still looked calm. Not scared. Not angry. Just blank. Like the man who tried to kill his family didn't think he'd done anything wrong. And maybe that's what scared me most, how easy it was for him to disconnect. How he could poison his wife and child, pack a bag, kiss another woman, and go live a new life like nothing had ever happened. But it didn't end that way. The detectives brought everything to light. The offshore accounts. The texts between him and Brooklyn. The deleted bank records. Even the kitchen security cam I forgot we installed after a break-in last year, still running, still recording. It caught him stirring something into the potatoes. Twice. Measured. Precise. Brooklyn was arrested too, but she claimed she knew nothing. Said he told her I had abandoned him and that Jackson wasn't his biological son. She was released after a few weeks. Daddy's lawyers cleaned it up fast. But Gabriel? He didn't stand a chance. When the trial came, I sat in the front row every single day. I stared at the back of his head as the prosecutors read the charges. Attempted double homicide. Use of controlled substances with intent to harm. Premeditated conspiracy to commit murder. Jackson didn't come. He was in trauma counseling by then. He couldn't even hear Gabriel's name without freezing up. But I was there. And when it was my turn to testify, I stood up in that courtroom, hands shaking, but my voice steady. And I told them everything. What we ate. What we felt. What he said. Especially what he whispered before I collapsed. I made sure it wouldn't hurt. I still love you, you know. That sentence. That sentence lives in my bones. Because it wasn't just cruel. It was delusional. It was the final insult from a man who believed love was something you could fake, right up to the moment you kill someone. Gabriel sat there like a stone. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. He pled guilty before the trial ended. Didn't even make the jury deliberate. Maybe he thought it made him noble. Or maybe he just didn't care anymore. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I didn't cry. I didn't clap. I didn't feel anything. Because this wasn't justice. This was survival. Plain and cold. 3 months later, I'm living with Araceli now. In the guest room with the yellow curtains. Jackson sleeps just down the hall, surrounded by comic books and stuffed animals. He laughs again. He dances in socks on the hardwood floors. He builds Lego cities and reads me facts about space. He's healing. Slowly. Bravely. And me? I'm not sure I'm healed. But I'm alive. And I'm listening. Because the truth is, what saved us wasn't strength. It wasn't luck. It wasn't God or medicine or a miracle. It was instinct. That quiet whisper that said, don't trust this smile. Don't take another bite. Drag your son to the floor. Stay still. Pretend. It was instinct that saved me. Not love. Because I thought love would save us. I thought love would pull him back from the edge. I thought if I was patient, kind, loyal, he'd come around. But love didn't stop Gabriel from buying poison. Love didn't stop him from kissing her. From packing the passports. From planning our deaths like we were an item on his checklist. And you know what still haunts me? That whisper. I made sure it wouldn't hurt. I still love you, you know. He wanted me to hear it. To carry it. To make me second-guess what I knew was true. But I won't. Because that wasn't love. That was ownership. That was ego. That was erasure with a smile. I'm standing at the window now. Watching Jackson in the backyard. He's chasing fireflies barefoot, laughing so hard his cheeks turn pink. Araceli's watering the roses. The sun's dipping just low enough to cast gold over everything. And for the first time in a long time, I feel safe. Not because the doors are locked. Not because he's behind bars. But because I listened. I finally listened. I thought love would save us. But it was instinct that did. Never ignore the whispers inside you. They speak the truth before the lies even begin. If you've ever questioned your gut, your worth, your safety, please remember this: real love doesn't poison. Real love doesn't erase. Real love lets you live. If this story touched you, or made you think twice about something in your own life, drop a comment below. Tell me what your instincts have ever whispered to you. And if you're still here, still watching, please like this video. Subscribe for more real stories. Not just for the drama, but for the healing. Because survival isn't just a headline. It's a choice. And some of us had to crawl through hell just to make it out the front door alive. Until next time, stay safe. Stay sharp. And don't you ever ignore your gut.